Well, Steve, woo!
Damn,
You ready for a
man.
debate?
I'm ready to hit that shit, man. Let's do it.
Man.
Wired, man.
I feel like half of a gram on my face.
You gotta, yeah, I think you gotta like get the rest of that, man. Yeah, there you go.
And now it's not going to come off. Awesome.
It's permanent.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to NonSequitur. Actually, thank you for tuning back in after last night. Man, Steve, you weren't here, but what were your thoughts? Give us kind of like a wrap up of what you just witnessed last night.
I wanted to shoot myself in the right eye, basically. I mean, I was there. I was actually watching it, but unfortunately, I had a laptop issue and I couldn't type, so I was trying to find another keyboard and listening. I mean, like I said, I've known the guy and I understand he has some weird beliefs. I didn't know the extent, though. I honestly had no idea that there's not a single conspiracy theory that he's ever met that he didn't like, and so it was weird to even hear him say things that I was not aware of. Those were his positions, and so it was bizarre. I'm not gonna front. It was very bizarre.
He, I told Steve before we started the show. Actually, I was speaking with him about 45 minutes ago, and I received links to videos where meteorites and comets are hoaxes as well. Because if you remember, I used the example because he said space wasn't real. That well, how do you explain comets and meteors coming in? And apparently they're hoaxes too. So,
but doesn't it remind you of Russian vids? Because Russian vids is the exact same thing. Remember, he would send you. I mean, he tried doing it with me too, but I don't have the wherewithal to watch his videos, so he stopped. But he continued to send you things like all the time. Hey, Kyle, you got to see this. This is evidence for this. Hey, Kyle, 33.
He doesn't strike me as somebody like Russian vids, because Russian vids, you can tell when that he's just like crazy by the way he talks, because it's 90 miles an hour and it goes in 900 directions. Joe is laid back in his, beliefs. There's just too many of them. You know what I mean? Like there's just, all of them are crazy. You expect somebody to have like one of them, but not all of them. Like literally all of them.
There are a few. No, there are a few that actually, I mean, like I said, they haven't met a conspiracy theory that they don't like. And so they'll buy into anything that they see on YouTube. If they see a video, they're like, oh, that's evidence. And therefore they believe it. That's the way the brains work for some reason.
So bizarre. But anyways, let's get to what we've got coming up for the week so that we can then jump into the debate. And in just a moment, I will have Steve introduce our fine gentleman who will be discussing whether or not drugs should be decriminalized. But let's pull up what we've got coming up for the week. Tomorrow, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have Adam Kokesh, who's running for president.
Kyle, you're a robot in there.
And
are we losing Kyle?
Immediately after, tomorrow's going to be a double header. And I'm still here.
You're robotic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we're having a Kyle EXE failure.
Oh, 404. What about now?
404. But it's working now, but everything you just said was garbled.
Okay. Well, I was saying that tomorrow is Adam Kokesh at 8 p.m. Eastern. He's running for president on the Libertarian Party. And it fits because right after that, at 10 p.m., we have Scientist Mel, and I believe, Steve, you're coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yep.
sir.
Okay, so
he's doing tonight and tomorrow.
Okay. And what position you take the pro gun, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so that will be immediately following the Adam Kokesh interview. So one at 8, one at 10. Saturday, we are going to be releasing a pre-recorded interview that we did with an editor from BuzzFeed, Matt Ford. He recently did a documentary on conversion therapy. We discussed that. Really great interviews. Fantastic guy, and that will be on Saturday at noon. We'll release that, and then Sunday the highlight section will come out like it did last week. Starting next week on the 6th, we have the KJV with Jerry Griffith. Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's not 8, 5 p.m. Eastern. Prophet of Zod and Modern Day Hysteria will be with us. Shoot over to Wednesday. which is the African American experience. We'll have Emperor Atheist and Nate Brody come on and talk about what it means to be an atheist and also African American. Unique experience there. On Thursday, we have Bunty King and Vadim Newquist. Vadim Newquist is, of course, the slave to creationist cat. They're going to be talking about free speech. And then finally on Friday, fan favorite Tim O'Neill will be back to talk about the Dark Ages. And then on the 14th, of course, Christians Against Dinosaurs and Joe from last night, who does not believe in viruses, will be back because he also does not believe in dinosaurs, but he is an atheist. So we have Christians Against Dinosaurs and Atheists Against Dinosaurs all in one show. What could be better?
That's gonna be awesome. I'm so looking forward to that. Honestly.
And then finally, big announcement. We have Saitin Brugen Kate will be joining us on August the 28th. He will be talking to Raul from Street Knowledge, who is a street epistemologist. They will be having a discussion together. And actually, Steve, you had Sai on your channel today. How did that go?
It went great, actually. I gotta admit, I've known about Sai for a very, very long time, but I never really interacted with him until recently on Twitter, maybe for a month or so. But this was the first time I actually been in a actual hangout with him, and I gotta admit, he's very personable. I don't agree with him, obviously, and I used to totally dismantle Precept along with a bunch of other people on various channels. But I think he's coming back to have a different approach this time. He's not as aggressive as he used to be, and I think it's actually working for him. And so as long as he's not, having this posturing that he used to do, I'm actually happy to engage with him and have people engage with him, and I think he's actually enjoying it. So he seems like a really nice guy, to be honest with you, but he's just the Precept is dead. He just didn't get the memo yet.
Yeah. It'll be a good talk. I think that form of and Raul, who used to be an apologist and was a user of the presuppositionalist argument. So I think I wonder
if he got his ass handed to him too many times, and he just finally said, you know what, maybe this is kind of a bad. And it's not like I said, precept is not an argument per se. It's basically.
Could you be wrong about that?
To shut the atheist down. And
No,
I'm not wrong about anything. It's actually a fact. It's an ontological reality that Steve is never wrong about.
How do you know that, Steve?
Because I am God and I'm omnipotent. I have all knowledge.
Well, I know you're not, because that has been revealed to me in a way that only I can know that.
How do you know it's all knowledge, Steve?
Okay.
Now you're getting deep, Dave.
All right. So we look forward to that. Let's, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Deceive McRae and introduce the topic and our guest for tonight.
So tonight we got two from my Facebook friends, Kevin, Grem, and Steve. I never pronounced his last name before. It's Schedfcick.
Oh no, like the chef got sick.
Chef got sick.
Yeah, Schedfcick.
Chef. Okay, I know him as Scuba Steve. He's actually been a long time follower of my channel, and
that's much easier.
Scuba Steve. So I'm just gonna go by Scuba Steve because it's something that I know him by. But anyways, what we've been doing, if you guys haven't been noticing, is we've been trying to match up people to have discussions and debates on specific topics. Well, tonight was actually a night where both gentlemen were free to have a discussion on should drug use be decriminalized. And we have Kevin taking the pro position and Steve taking the con position. If I'm correct on that?
Yeah.
Yep,
that is correct.
And I want to say from the outset, before we turn it over to you guys, that I happen to agree with the premise that we've kind of lost the war on drugs. I think that it was an ill-conceived notion from the get-go. I think that the whole war was just more like a skirmish that just lasted way too long, and I think that something does need to be done. So I'm actually looking forward to hearing the arguments about the decriminalization of it, because again, if the war has already been lost on it, do we really need to have criminalization for certain drugs? So I'm just going to toss it over to you guys from there. And Kev, why don't you kind of give your reasoning, because you're the pro position, why you should be decriminalized, and then we can kind of just have an organic discussion from there.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you, first of all, for accurately getting the position that I specifically, it's decriminalization that I'm arguing for, not necessarily total legalization. So that's a key point there. So I will, I guess, speak uninterrupted for maybe 5 minutes, if that's cool, and then
Absolutely.
to give my opening comments. Because I just so happened to make a post on an unrelated forum about this topic, and then I just saved it, put it in a Word document, and so I'm just going to basically read that. It's just like maybe a page about like my case, why I think drugs should be decriminalized. So in my opinion, having drug use as a crime really, in my opinion, just boils down to an abuse of human justice. So I'm against it for moral reasons. Now, the point that we need to understand about the law, that what I believe the purpose of the law should be, is that there's two purposes for the law, and I think that this is pretty reasonable, and that everybody could agree with these with what the law is. In my opinion, the first purpose of the law is to exist to protect good people from dangerous people. I think we can all agree on that. And secondly, I think that laws they're put in place to make sure that everybody is treated with justice and fairness. Now, I don't see that the prohibition of drugs fulfills either of these two purposes. I don't believe that drug users are inherently immoral people. And I believe that the vast majority of people who use are most of the time functional, otherwise law-abiding citizens. I believe that the drug laws fail to ensure free individuals the right to the right to pursue their freedom. And what I would ask my opponent today, I don't know anything about him, but I would ask that if maybe he could try to see it from the perspective of the drug user, and whether or not you use drugs, just imagine how you would feel if you were forcibly taken and locked away simply for freely choosing to ingest a substance. So I am against the criminalization of drugs for ethical reasons. I have compassion for those who use. I see it as a public health issue, not a criminal issue, and so that's why I am for the decriminalization of drugs.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you pointed out that it is about the decriminalization, and that's different from legalization issues. But Steve, go ahead. You have also
they are related, though.
Oh, absolutely, they're related. But I'm glad that the topic is actually more dealing with the criminalization of drug use rather than should it be legal or should it not be legal. But anyways, Scuba Steve.
Yes, sir.
All yours.
All right. Well, a little bit about myself. When I got out of the Navy, I was hurt when I was in, and the Navy stuck me on some painkillers, and that snowballed down out of control. So knowing kind of,
I'm gonna get closer to your mic.
Oh, here you are. What? Can you guys hear me better now?
It didn't seem to make a difference. Are you sharing the right mic?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that mic. Yeah, that mic. That's the one you're on.
So this one is working. Okay.
There we go. That's a lot better.
All right. All right. So let me see. Let me get this thing back in. So yeah, when I got out of the Navy, I was hurt. I had hurt my neck. They had me on painkillers, and that led from dependency down to addiction. And the problem that I have is that the drugs that I think that should stay, like pragmatically, if we were to be in a perfect world where we had really good health care and we had people to help addicts wean down off of these medications, yeah, I think that we could decriminalize it. But a lot of these drugs we even have substitutes for, like, heroin. You want to get off heroin, you go on methadone. And the problem is that if you go to these methadone clinics here and you look at what's going on in these clinics, yes, technically these people are receiving treatment now, but they're not getting better. I mean, I've been to, God, probably about a dozen methadone clinics between California and Arizona, and it gets worse. Most of these programs that you get into get worse. So we have a viable substitution program, and the people that use it get worse. I don't see why decriminalizing, like heroin, is going to make anything any better whatsoever. In fact, having it as something that's on the books as a law, I hear the argument all the time of if we decriminalize it, people will be more willing to go get help. That's not true. We have ways that you can go get help now. In fact, if you're broke and on state aid, you can go inpatient in many different places. They don't care what you're on, and you can get help, substitution help. There's tons of help that we have here. Nobody uses it. And if we do, nobody cares when you're there. All they care about is making sure that you're medicated and out. So if we could get socialized medicine, something to help out with the addiction side of things, yeah, maybe. But I mean, at that point, it's kind of like it's half dozen or the other. We wouldn't need to get rid of it because people would be willing to go get help. So I don't see how the decriminalization will help at all. It has helped me not get on those types of drugs. So, like I said, hearing that argument of, it doesn't help anyone, or, people will be more willing to go get help if we decriminalize it, I think that's a bogus argument. It's, heroin addict off the street right now can go get help, and decriminalizing it isn't going to help with the supply side of things either. I was reading up on Portugal. Portugal still has mass problems with the supply of the drugs coming in. So if it's doing a deterrent and it's helping more people, I don't see why we would decriminalize it. Okay. I mean, we take point by point, but
that's fine. Just real quick, because I was ex-military too. And you don't have to like answer this if you don't want to, but I also had issues, and I was put on Vicodin. It seems to be the drug of choice for the VA. However, Vicodin didn't work for me very much. It got rid of some of the neuropathy issues that I had, but I got to tell you, there's no way I could get addicted to Vicodin because it just for some reason doesn't really have much of an effect.
You tried cocaine?
You know what? I'm seriously like, no, you know what? I'll be one of those first people that, that tried cocaine that dies. I mean, it just happens. I would be that person that would be like, yeah, I'm going to try it once. I'll be dead.
You own cocaine is probably the worst idea I think.
This is coffee. And this is bad enough. This is by the way, I got a green cup, people. So this is what happens when you have a green cup on live TV.
But let's turn it over to you guys so that you guys can have the conversation. And I've got some points at the end that I want to ask, because I actually was one of those people that I have been in prison for drug use. So at the end, I got some questions for both of you, but Kevin, we'll turn it over to you and you can respond based on what Steve just said.
All right. So I do think that those that have drug problems deserve help, deserve treatment. I can accept what he said about they haven't been able to get effective treatment at these facilities. I can accept that, even though I don't know anybody, and I have not been in that situation. But I'm wondering how we can say that having harsh penalties, making it a crime somehow will help. But I think the problem is not that it's not that we should keep it illegal. Just I think from what I got out of that is that our treatment centers aren't good enough. So sounds to me like that's the real issue there, and I don't see that keeping it a crime, having harsher penalties will do a better job. Granted, it's not easy to deal with, but throwing people in prison, I just don't see how that's stopping the drug use either.
Oh, I think it stops some. If it's a deterrent for some, I think it's worth it. Now, we can talk about like pot. Pot. I think should be legal across the board. I use pot. I don't. It helps with so many things. That's one of those things we can medically show. But let's go on meth. If you're walking around with meth, how? If you go down that path of using those type of drugs statistically have been shown to just make you worse and worse and worse. It's rare you come across a functioning meth addict. And as they spiral out of control, they start becoming a danger to society. At least a lot of them that I run across, even though they're good people, stealing from other people, going, robbing from like Walmart all the time. It's like a normal thing to them. So if we don't do some type of deterrent and we just allow it to free flow, especially since we have substitutions that can help you, I don't see why we would decriminalize it, especially if it keeps people like me from doing
it. Well, I just think that because having it be a crime, I just don't see that makes any sense. That because it's not hurting anybody except the person who uses it. And in most cases, like sure there are a lot of people that abuse drugs, but there are also many people that use it responsibly and in moderation. So the approach, I get that there are hard drugs out there, and we have to look at them differently. I get that, and I meth, the harder drugs, but I think that what about people that use those drugs who aren't causing any problems? Like, what about them? Should they be arrested? That's my problem with it.
Should they be arrested? I think our entire criminal justice system needs to be revamped. But that being said, yes and no. I think that some of the laws should be lessened. I still think it should be illegal, but I think it should be illegal in the sense that, if you get caught with it, it's confiscated, you're given a ticket, and you have to show up in court, and they make you go to a rehab program or, something like that the first couple of times. I think the whole thing needs to be revamped. But I still think it should be illegal. You said that the people that are doing drugs don't hurt anybody. I would like, right. But I would like for you to show me a case in which that happens. We don't live in bubbles. It's not a vacuum that you live in. If I'm doing meth and I'm not hurting anybody outside me or outside my immediate family, where would you draw that line? Is it just at yourself?
You mean you don't you want to know if that's happening, that if you not accept that that's going on, that because I think that most people that use substances, like just in general, don't become addicts that cause lots and lots of problems. And so,
Really?
yes.
Seriously? Like
Yes.
most addicts?
I think that there are users and there are addicts, and that everybody seems to think that anybody that would use a substance, is they lump them in with addicts, and I think that we should treat the drugs the same way we treat alcohol. You can use alcohol responsibly, and that's what we try to put that message out there. And everybody's different. People react to different drugs different ways. Like, there are some people that can't drink alcohol, and they are horrible people, and that's legal. And alcohol is probably one of the most dangerous drugs there are, in my opinion. And I like, but it wouldn't make any sense to make that illegal. And I just don't see the that's just how I think. Like, I would treat them all the same. I mean, the same legally, but different because they have different effects on different people. So,
all right. Well, I mean, you're,
Steve,
I
how would you
think-
respond to that? What do you think about alcohol? If alcohol is legal, why shouldn't other? Because we can agree that alcohol is probably way more dangerous than most drugs would be.
Yeah, but I think when you look at drugs, and being somebody that's used a fairly good amount of my own, alcohol's one of those ones where I really don't think that it should be, but alcohol has so many problems with so many people. It's all the accidents that happen because of it, all the deaths that happen because of it. It is a really bad drug. But alcohol falls into this realm of like pot. You can make alcohol in your backyard. So rather than try to
make meth in
stem,
your backyard.
yes, you can. I just, I think alcohol and pot are so easily made that anyone could do it, that it's really hard to stem the flow of those things. And most people can use alcohol responsibly. I have never in my entire life met a single meth addict that used it responsibly. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there are some people that can use it responsibly, but
well,
the dangers that we know about meth, how it's made, the dangers to the people making it, you can physically see people change when they use it, and it affects everybody around them. So, and it's rare that, like
okay,
I said,
I know one. I can think of one. Lemmy from Motorhead. He was a meth addict, and he was functional, and that's functional in the sense that he made a career and did his job every day and got through life, and toured, wrote music, recorded music. But
right. But again, those are rarities. I've come across people that could use hard drugs and be completely functional, but those people are rare. They're really rare. Most of the people that you're going to come across are the people that slowly spiral out of control until they hit some form of rock bottom that wakes them up, and then they go get treatment.
But I think your problem there would be running into the whole alcohol. See, I think the alcohol aspect undoes all of those points, because that's something that too you see people spiraling out of control with. There are people that can't hold their own and be around it, and they destroy their lives, their families, everything. They get violent. That's going to happen with the effects of alcohol mirror those of the drugs. And so how can you justify one being legal and then not the other?
Could you not just argue, though, that alcohol is socially acceptable and it's so readily available and it's profitable? I mean, obviously there's big business in alcohol. So Steve, would you not agree if things of drugs were the same profitability, would you still advocate the position that you have that they shouldn't be decriminalized? Because that's a big revenue stream.
Well, yes, but I don't care about the money necessarily more than I care about what people are actually doing to themselves and everyone else around them. I mean, the whole point I'm trying to make is that drugs don't just affect that one person; they affect everyone. You know.
And let me ask you a question, Steve.
Yeah.
If do you think that the fact that drugs are punishable by a penalty, or it's a crime, do you think that deters many people that would do drugs otherwise?
Well, I think that would be a really hard statistic to find out.
Mm.
You know, you can't find that. It'd be really hard to find the negative of this. I think it deters probably a good amount of people. You know,
It does. I've never met anybody that it deterred. I gotta be honest with you.
Well, like I said, it deterred me.
Well, I think that would be like you are a rare case then, because usually if you're gonna if you go there and you're gonna want to try that, the fact that it's illegal very rarely would play into that. And in my whole point of this is, like, I understand both sides and both arguments, but I think that drugs and people who are addicted to drugs should be treated, not punished.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what winds up happening is you're overcrowding prisons, shutting people up in a box, and the actual addiction itself is never acknowledged. It's never like when I got locked up for a year for cocaine, and the cocaine aspect of it never came into play. It was never addressed. It was, they ship people off, put them in concrete buildings, and throw away the key until your date comes up. But it's a punishment thing, not a treatment thing. And I think that we need to focus more on the treatment than the punishment part.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, pragmatically, if we could get social services and actual treatment centers that are going to treat things open to free to public across the country, yeah, I completely agree. But I don't see how if we can do that, we can also revamp our criminal justice system, which needs to be done with drugs. I still think you should get punished if you have certain drugs. Like I was trying to say, I don't think all drugs should be legalized. That doesn't mean I don't think some of them should be.
Which ones?
Which ones should be decriminalized?
Yeah.
Well,
right.
Pot. I know they're trying to crack down on Crantum right now, which I think is a great substitute.
How about acid?
I gotta be honest, I haven't put much thought into that. I don't know.
They don't really crack down on acid,
Nobody gives a shit about it. Right.
Yeah.
How often do you hear about somebody getting or busted for using acid?
I can't even imagine. I don't know when that last time it's ever happened.
I mean, I think that kind of falls into the room of, like, the psychedelic shrooms, things like that. I think those should be decriminalized. DMT, you should be able to do those. You can do those safely in your home. Most people don't get all psyched out and, go crash their head through a windshield. But things like bath salts,
Casey had a good story. She had a friend that did mushrooms, and she used to have like Christmas lights hanging up around in her room that kind of swooped down, and he laid down in her floor, and he had crossed his arms, and the Christmas lights, he said, slowly made a mouth and was like talking to him.
Oh crap.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, man. You could do some trippy stuff, man.
I would be one of those people that would have a really bad acid trip. I never did anything past cocaine. I smoked weed, and I'm a big proponent of decriminalizing weed, because weed is the only thing that through some of these shows I've been able to keep my sanity.
Scuba Steve, let me ask you a question.
So that needs to.
Yeah, I'm for the. Yeah, you know what? I don't smoke pot, but I'm totally for decriminalization of it. But here's my problem with the whole deterrence factor, right? Did you ever drink underage? Because I got to tell you, underage drinking has never been a deterrent, even though it's a criminal offense, right? I mean, if you're 20 years of age and you're like, hey, I'm going to go out and drink. I don't know too many of them that at that age, because I certainly was not one of those people that said, oh, I'm too young to drink. We all did it. It is illegal, and it's never been a deterrent for stopping underage drinking. So how would it affect people that want to go out and do whatever drugs? Because I don't know too many people that are not doing drugs because of the criminalization of it, unless they've already been arrested for it. Right. And that maybe might have an argument there because they know what it's like and they don't want to go back. But other than that kind of deterrent, I don't know anybody has never been arrested for drugs that ever said, I don't want to do this drug because it's illegal. And I've been to a lot of parties.
I was gonna say I was arrested for underage drinking once, and it didn't stop me. It stopped me for a while, but then I was just more careful about it. But yeah, I would imagine it can be a deterrent, but like, I don't know. It didn't stop, but I don't know.
Okay, so
not enough to where I think you can have I think some people expect like a big in, if you were to legalize it, there'll be so many more people. I think the fear is there'll be so many more people and so many more lives would get destroyed. And but I don't know that you would find that. I don't think that the fact that it's illegal is keeping it, because think of speeding. I mean, speeding's illegal, but how many people speed?
People that want to do drugs will do drugs, and people that don't.
Yeah.
I don't think I think right now, if you legalized every drug there possibly was, like in Holland kind of thing, I don't think it really have notable difference. I don't think you would see an uptick in many things. Minor at best.
yeah, no, I'm not. I don't think that there would be an uptick. I'm not one of those people that thinks if you decriminalize it, all of a sudden there's going to be a flood of people doing it. I mean, you may have a small percentage increase of people, oh, let's try this for the first time. They try and don't like it. But yeah, I wouldn't think that decriminalizing it would change those numbers much.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could focus more on the supply side of it, because that would take care of a lot of the problems we have, because a lot of the drugs we have come from out of the country. So if we could handle that, I think we would have a lot less of a problem. Well, I don't know.
If drugs were legal, wouldn't it put a dent into the cartels?
No.
You don't think so?
No, and go look at Portugal, because I did a lot of research on this before. And I'll tell you, before I got on this, I was actually thinking they should be decriminalized. And now I've kind of flopped to the other side with it. In Portugal, they still have the exact same amount of drugs coming in from the cartel.
No, but I mean, as far as the American,
I think it'd be the same. It'd still come through Mexico and down through Canada.
What do you think, Kevin? If drugs were legalized to the point where, like, for example, the legalization of pot, and pot's no longer a criminal offense in many states, and eventually it'll be everywhere but North Carolina. Sorry, Kyle. It's going to be the last state that ever gets decriminalized for marijuana for whatever strange reason. You guys are back.
We'll be the last holdout for sure.
Last one. But you don't think that the decriminalization and legalization of pot is not effective?
West Virginia might beat us.
You think so?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, because states are now legalizing marijuana, do you think that's affected the cartels and their money? Because obviously before, the only way to really kind of get pot was through illegal means. Now you have dispensaries. You go around the corner and go, hey, give me some pot. You don't even need a medical card.
Yes, it's helped with that. And it's also, I think another way it helps is that, so like we have alcohol, but since alcohol is such a big part of the culture, we know how to use it responsibly because it's so common, and we know how to deal with people who are using it. So the fact that it's legal, helps in that sense. Now, like if drugs are legal, will there be more use? Yeah, because it'll be more common. But if it's responsible use and it's not the kind that causes problems, then I don't have a problem with that.
That's your problem though with drugs, I think, because I have to concede that not going to be many cases of responsible when you're talking heroin and those kind of heavy drugs. I think once you get on those, you just start going down that black hole, and every high has to be, you're constantly chasing that dragon, and eventually that's what messes people up, is they can't get that first high again. So it's hard to use those kind of drugs responsibly.
So
Yeah, for a lot of people, but not for everybody. But yeah, I think I know people that have used it and they're not addicts, but I don't know what like the statistics are. Like, most people that use it become addicts. I know a lot of people do, but
Well, even if
those-
they do, though, what's the reasoning behind criminalization of it, though? I think Kyle hit the nail on the head when he said that these people should get treatment. I don't find any reason by which incarceration should be a punishment for somebody wanting to do drugs, because there's not.
Yeah, that's the issue I have.
They're not a threat to society, to themselves, yes. And could that lead to danger to society? Yes, but you cannot be convicted for something you have not done yet. So
Okay.
I'm a very much against incarceration for any types of drugs, unless additional crimes are being committed, or there are just so many repeat offenders that the treatment's maybe not working. Okay, maybe I can see it, but for first time offenders or even second time offenders, there's no way in hell I think there should be criminalization for it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but
But that makes up the majority of the system.
Oh, it overcrowds it taxes the penal system like you wouldn't believe. It's more people are in prison for drugs than any other offense.
Money.
And do you think that because of some prisons are actually publicly privately funded, do you think that that's a reason why people will go out and advocate criminalization? Because there is a business at this point.
Yes,
prisons are a business.
Private prisons give kickbacks to judges that sentence people for longer sentences because they make money.
Yeah. That's why I think, Scuba Steve, you want to talk about overhauling the system. Those things that need to be addressed. You're talking about overhauling the judicial system and the penal system.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you guys are talking about people just getting busted for coke. Most of the time, it's not just the cops rolled up on this person and just searched them and found this drug all of a sudden. Usually there's some other extenuating circumstance that happens. They're in a place they're not supposed to be. They're acting wildly strange out in public. I mean, there's always something else that happens.
Well, let me stop you right there, Steve, because that's actually not true. What happens is they do with stings where they'll catch somebody dealing, or they catch somebody else and that person rats out the next person, and then you get this string of okay, this person deals, so they'll watch that person until they make a move and get them that. Now, are there many cases where they do catch them out in places like they're not supposed to be or in a fight? Yeah, but the majority of them, I was locked up with probably most of the people who are in there for drug offenses were there because either somebody snitched on them or the undercover officer, they sold to an undercover officer.
Yeah, but now we're in the realm of users versus dealers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about decriminalizing just for a user, I would argue that most users are probably doing something oddly strange that the cops had to be called out for it, and that's how they get in trouble.
But oddly strange isn't a criminal offense.
Well, okay, no, I'm not giving a good example of it. I'm just, most of the time when you get caught and you're a user out in public, it's because you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. The cops have been called for a reason. They don't just randomly show up and start searching somebody on the street.
Actually, they have, but
yeah.
It goes back to the profitability. There's two things, though, Steve, that I think need to be addressed. One, if drugs were legalized, or I should say decriminalized, one, it would prevent cops from planting drugs on people, which, by the way, they have done. And two, there's a very high profitability in seizure, and especially in California. There are laws on the books now that if you're a drug-related offenses during the commission of a crime or whatever, they can seize your assets. They can seize your car, seize your house, seize your property. There is no.
They can seize it anyway, though, Steve.
Yeah.
Civil forfeiture.
Well,
a cop can pull you over and.
It's a lot easier when there's drugs involved. They can, if you have a somehow, for example, possession with your cell. That's all. Everything that you have is theirs, and there's no recourse for it. You can't sue the government and get it back. It's just it's seized. So I think that they use that for revenue because there is no due process at that point.
Sure they do.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. Do you feel that I should be able to take, let's say I get prescribed 100 microgram fentanyl patches. Do you think I should be able to take those and go sell them to whoever I want?
No, because that's the same thing like food stamps. You can't give away food
Yeah.
stamps either. That's illegal,
prescribed to
right?
you.
It's
That's
prescribed to
prescribed to
you. So that
Right.
that should be criminalized.
But I'm talking about like pot stuff that's not that a doctor is not prescribing. Now, if you sell your prescription to someone else that was prescribed to you, that could well, that's a good point though.
But the law is that you're breaking the law by selling it. The person taking it, that's the difference. It should have been-
but the
should have been a
person,
criminal effect to take the drugs.
But what's the
No.
difference though? I think what he's saying is what's the difference?
He's the one breaking the law by selling it because, like I said, you can't sell your food stamps. Same thing if it's prescribed to you, you can't give that, you can't sell that to somebody else. And by the way, there are also reasons for that. If you're prescribed a certain medication and you're not a doctor and you give it to somebody else, that other person could die because
But they could die from the other drug too. That's what I'm saying. It's a murky area. They could die from somebody getting cocaine or meth.
yeah,
But-
see, there's
but-
no good way to do this unless you have a doctor prescribe it to you. And if you're just getting it from some guy off the street, A, God knows what's in it, and B, there's nobody to watch you to make sure that you're okay. And now, pragmatic, I think we should have doctors that you could go to and be like, hey,
drug
I know-
doctors.
I know that I want to be high all the time and I want to
Wow.
do it safely. That'd be cool if you could do that, but
I don't
I don't
think
see
that
that
would work.
happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't see that happening.
Kevin,
So
what do you think?
About I'm sorry, what was the
About the
Drug
dealer-
doctors
the
where you can
dealer
go to,
aspect.
yeah, you can go to after a doctor and basically a doctor, all he does is prescribe hard drugs to people. What do you think about that?
well, that they do that, they overprescribe a lot of drugs, so
They
I don't
actually- Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean opium. I mean, I got to tell you, the opium epidemic is a real thing.
Yep.
I mean, literally, people were going just, hey, you know what? I got a headache. Can you give me some narco? It's like, here.
But Kevin, how would you handle, like, if they were decriminalized, the people that deal the drugs, not necessarily the people using them, but the person that's putting them out there?
That's harder to answer. That's why I'm kind of like, I can only really take a strong position on the user, saying that should be fine. As far as the dealers, like, that's harder for me to answer because they actually are. You can argue that they're hurting people, so I don't really have a good answer for that.
Would you guys have a compromise that you could decriminalize everything as of now, besides meth and heroin? Would you be okay with that? Because those are the two drugs that I think most people have the bigger issues with, because they are self-destructive and they are harmful. I've seen the effects of meth on people. It is not a pretty sight.
Well, so you're saying that keep those ones illegal?
Keep those. Yeah, I mean, if just as a kind of something you both agree on, would you say that if you want to decriminalize things like pot, even acid or shrooms, just like that?
No, I'm still for decriminalization, criminalizing all drugs.
Yeah, no, I'm actually
I
I'd be
agree.
more of a compromise with, and I'm kind of tending to that side as well. However, if they kept meth or heroin criminal, I'm not going to really balk at that too much, because I do think that they are
The
destructive to society.
thing is, though,
I
with
can agree on that.
but the issue is that I'm looking at it from a point of view of the legal system and the prison system and what that does in terms of just locking people up and not addressing the actual cause of it. If you leave out the heroin and or if you leave meth and heroin illegal, it does nothing, I think, to take away from the help that could be in that case. If they would take it away from more of a punishment and more of a treatment for addiction when somebody gets caught, or like if they have heroin on or whatever, they need to be like referred to a place rather than put in the revolving doors of the legal system. I mean, it's just not, it wouldn't do anything to alleviate that.
Well, yes and no, because you can decriminalize it. I mean, so you can make it not a punishment by incarceration, but still having criminal, such that if you have heroin, it's like that, they can arrest you. You're just like a one night thing, but then you go to a treatment stuff. You don't have to have incarceration, but at least they can make it a court ordered mandate for you to get treatment because it's a criminal offense.
The problem is, though, that it's like Kevin said, he knows people that can use heroin, maybe meth. I don't know. I think you were just talking about heroin, correct, Kevin?
Oh yeah, actually, you earlier, you guys said that you don't think that heroin can be used responsibly,
Yeah.
but
Many people.
I know of examples that that go against that, but I don't have. I
It's
don't have.
so rare. It's so rare. Come on.
Yeah, but my point is, Steve, though, I mean, who's the, like, I think it's subjective to say which ones are.
Of course it is.
So I mean, like, how would you come to that
I
conclusion?
I can't agree about heroin. I think that there
Yeah,
are.
I don't agree with you either.
I mean, Kevin, would you legalize heroin then?
No, no, I would. I wouldn't arrest people for it. If somebody is, there are heroin users that that hold down jobs, and so
Then make it an infraction. I mean, look at, for example, like you can't get arrested for a parking ticket, right? That's not a criminal offense they arrest you for. It's an infraction. It's a city ordinance, those kind of things. You can make laws such that you can still have a criminal thing as far as it being against the law, but they're not something you'd be arrested for. But it's something you still have to go to court. You still have to go to a judge, and a judge can say, you know what? I think you do need intervention. I think you do need help.
Yeah,
Why couldn't it be something like that?
would not. I would not treat. I think the thing is about saying that making it illegal is that it makes it seem like, you know, if you're doing a crime that you're a bad person, you know, by breaking the law, you know, because there's an ethical part of it.
Speeding is a crime, but you're not going to get arrested for speeding unless it's reckless. But I mean, you go 10 miles over the speed limit, that's still a crime, but you're not, no cop is going to arrest you for that.
My issue, though, is my issue with, and the entire, like, where I come from is this: it should be decriminalized, because we have things in society that aren't chemically mind altering or, you know, physically addicting, that already do the same things and are just as destructive as any drug is. Think of gambling. Gambling is legal in most states, I think, and people will ruin their lives.
Actually, very few states it's legal.
Just as much as somebody on drugs will. You go down that same destructive path where nothing can get in the way of you gambling. You lose your friends, family. It affects them, because if you live in a household where that money's tied to who has the gambling addiction, I mean, it's destroyed. So
that's a good point. I mean, there's money to be made in gambling, though. That's why it's, again,
you could make money in drugs too. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. If you criminalize it, yeah, I'm okay with that, actually. Why not?
Yeah, I am too. I mean, make money.
Money was made when pot was legalized in Colorado. They made more one day than like the gross national product did in it.
Yeah, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's right for somebody to say that alcohol and things like gambling I'm fine with, or that should remain illegal, but not the others, because it doesn't make sense to me.
It is arbitrary, but it is social norms. I mean, alcohol, we learned prohibition, it doesn't work. That we all agree. I think prohibition just failed miserably, right? Because society has deemed alcohol to be one of those drugs that's socially acceptable, right? So it's basically what society has deemed to be what is socially acceptable as a drug and what is not. It used to be in the 70s, you know, you're a pot smoker, people thought you were lazy, you know, unwashed, you know, hippie. Now it's like the millennial hippie thing to do, or the millennial thing to do is smoke pot, right? I mean, I never got into that, but it's no longer that stigma of this long hair, you know, 70s hippie thing that it used to be.
No longer stereotype of you right now.
Yeah, exactly. I look like I should be more in drugs than Kyle. You know, right? I look like I should be like a Timothy Leary on an acid trip right now or something, but I don't do drugs.
Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly doesn't do drugs.
Yeah. I think that, you know, when you have, if we were to keep it illegal for the people that are selling it, you know, and you come across somebody who's got it on them, you need to find out where it came from. I agree, these people need treatment more than they need prison, but most of these people aren't going to seek that until they hit some form of rock bottom. And hopefully, I think the idea is that if you go to jail, that's supposed to be your rock bottom. I don't agree with the prison sentences or the terms. I mean, that's all, you know.
Shouldn't that be their right, though? to hit rock bottom. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like it should be their right to.
Isn't it also the case that there's a lot of drugs that get smuggled into prison by the guards and
Oh hell yes, hell yes. It was never short supply when I was there.
Exactly, and that's another reason why I don't think it's a deterrent. Because I could tell you right now, I've never been to prison, but I have a lot of friends who have. Drugs is not. There's no shortage of drugs in prison.
I had a cellmate that said this is a true story. Where he lived, it was like dried up. You couldn't get, he said, hardly anything, and it's easier for him to find the drugs while we were there and locked up in prison than it was while he was out.
Isn't that weird? I mean, it's counterintuitive, but at the same time, I totally believe that.
What are you gonna say, Stephen?
Have you gone back to jail?
No.
Oh. So do you think it worked?
I don't think that. Honestly, I don't think that going to that's not what cleaned me up. I mean, well, actually, it was what cleaned me up because I just stayed clean when I got out. But I had a bunch of like friends and some of my family members that would have been the choice that I made in the end anyway.
Was it necessary for you to go to jail?
No, not at all. But I'll tell you this:
deterrent. There are so many deterrents already on their own. I think
but I'll say this though, my case is rare because most people who get locked up and the people that I was with, they don't have like a strong family connection and a really close friend network. I do. I'm lucky enough to have that. But many of these people, they come from broken homes. They're impoverished. Everything depends on them either selling or they're just so miserable that they start using. And that's not addressed either. Again, they're just locked up and put in these places. But I was lucky to have that support system to keep me going. Like I had a lot to lose and I was going to lose it if I continued to do the drugs that I was doing. So that woke me up. But most people who are in that situation don't have that. They don't have that support system. All they have when they go out, when the state releases you, they release you out and there's nobody there to pick them up. You get I think $50 now to get started. I guess that's your get started money, at least in North Carolina. And they go back to the same broken home. What happens with our criminal justice system is that you're set up to fail from the beginning. When you get out, they give you a certain amount of time that you have to get a job, and then to start paying on your parole or probation fees, and to start paying back the money that you incurred while you were being locked up, because they charge you by day, depending on what prison you're in. The prices vary, but you're charged per day that you're there. So when you get out, not only do you have to have a job by set amount of days, which is hard to get because they have that big F by their name, and almost every application asks if you've ever been convicted of a felony, and checking that is an instant no in most cases. So if you don't hit that date, by the time you have to have a job, they throw you right back in and the revolving door starts. But you have to pay back your hotel. It's kind of like a hotel, your stay fees for when you were there, your probation and parole fees, which is a monthly fee that you incur for the state watching you, and whatever restitutions that you had based on your crime. So most people who are there are going back because they violated their parole and probation. And most of the time it's monetary based. Mm-hmm. So they're set up it's doomed from the beginning. By the time they get out, it's just a matter of time before they come back in because they can't pay that back.
Yeah, so it doesn't even matter if they stayed clean or not. They end up going back in the same system. Very few people that have been in prison once have only been in prison once. It's kind of a rarity. But let me ask you this, Steve, because you were military like myself. It is a deterrent in the military. If you do drugs in the military, you can get fucked. Let's put it this way. It's a lot worse than a civilian if you're caught doing drugs. However, you cannot tell me you didn't know anybody that got busted for it, because I did quite a few. So that deterrent factor, even in the military where you're going to get reamed pretty good, it is not an effective deterrent. I just don't believe that it is.
Yeah, we had 2 nukes right before Westpac went down to Mexico and came back and said that their drink was spiked with, I think it was Coke or something.
Yeah, that can you and I mean think about this. The government spends $250,000 minimum to train a nuke. It's a lot of money to train us. And you if you piss that away by doing drugs, you basically have screwed your entire life at that point because the government has wasted that much of money on you. They don't take that kindly. So you have very strong duties when you are in certain professions, SEALs, Cryptotech, nuke, that they don't mess around. But you know what? People still did it. People still went to Mexico and still did drugs. I'm sorry. I've seen it happen.
Well, yeah. We saw it happen. And I think the reason why it sticks out for us is because at least I don't know how it was for you, but on a sub, it was a lot smaller, much smaller community. So when it happened, it was huge news because nobody gets busted for drugs. It just never happened. So to hear it happening was a really big deal. So I mean,
really,
at least
I didn't, on my ship. I mean, I was a surface, but yeah, we had a couple
target
of people. Yeah, that's what we are. Seriously, that's what a caught a missile cruiser was. It was your target. Our whole job is to either intercept a missile or to take the missile hit, so the carrier doesn't do it.
Yep. And another problem that I have is the pharmaceutical industry is the biggest pusher of harmful drugs that's out there. More people die over opioids than anything like, cocaine or weed or those type things.
Well, hold on.
Sure.
It's not just opiates though. Most people aren't just dying from opiates. If I remember correctly, the statistic is an opiate and a barbiturate, or like Xanax. I don't know.
Yeah, well, most of the people that died have mixed things.
Right.
Yeah. Amy Winehouse mixed things. Prince mixed things.
But that's also the same thing. That's also a pharmaceutical dealt drug.
Yeah,
so those are the same things.
Yeah.
I categorize all those as, and it's because it's big money, and it's the same reason why you can't get mandatory minimum laws. That's hard as hell to change, because the state makes money off of you being in prison.
Yep.
Why do they want to curtail that? Why would they want to clean that up? It's making them a killing.
Did you invite Debbie?
No, Debbie.
Yeah, somebody's asking for join, but I don't know who this person is.
Who is Debbie?
Debbie Cloud?
No, I don't know who that is. No,
I have no idea.
Sorry, Debbie.
Sorry, Debbie. Don't know who you are.
Who the hell you are, Debbie? What do you mean? We're doing a show right now.
Do you know where you are, Debbie? Did you get lost on another Zoom call somewhere?
Anyway, so I don't think that it's a problem that is going to have soon a. I mean, just think about this. There are people in California right now that are locked up, have been locked up for decades for drug, or marijuana charges, whether they were dealing or whatever the case may be. That drug's now legal there. So there are people watching outside their cell window, people walking down the street toking up. In what world does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, people are spending. People have 10-year sentences for 3 joints. It's like, the 3-strike rule in California is no joke, and some of them have actually gone to prison for life over simple drug-related things. And I think that's completely absurd. It's totally ridiculous. I guarantee it, and I think Kyle is exactly right. I do believe it very much so that it's a profitable thing. That's why there is a demand to have these laws. But if they did decriminalize them and, they got the people out of prison that don't need to be there for drug-related offenses, it would cut the prison population down by considerable amount.
Half.
I'm going to say half is probably a bit much, but it could be.
I think it's 49%.
But it's a lot. I'd say 30 to 40% easy. Yeah.
Somebody put the statistic in the live chat a little bit ago. It was 49%, I believe.
And it's quite possible. Yeah. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility, but it would definitely have a dramatic effect. And those people could come back and be functional members of society rather than being incarcerated for something that now is legal. I mean, like Kyle says, if you were in prison for the rest of your life over marijuana, and in most cases now it's legal to have marijuana, what the hell kind of justice system is that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't, like I said, at the beginning, I think the justice system needs to be changed. I think some of these drug laws need to be brought down. However, things like heroin, like I was saying, we have viable substitutions for that. People can easily walk into any methadone clinic and get on methadone, and it's almost exactly the same as heroin. It would keep you from withdrawals. It would keep you high if you wanted. And I mean, to be bluntly honest, you can go in and you can raise yourself up to 200 milligrams a day. That's enough to get anybody high every day.
And
So-
methadone is it's addicting, correct? Just like heroin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't.
The withdrawals are one of the worst.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty crappy.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm not sure what point are you making, because they take that to come off of heroin from in the clinics. Is that true?
His point is that people are getting addicted to that, and it's easier to obtain sometimes than heroin. That's just as effective as heroin, and it's accessible because you just go there and they'll give it to you, and that's legal.
It's kind of like weaning your way out of alcoholism by having Jack Daniels instead of Scotch. It's just it's a nonsensical approach to me.
Well, yes.
So, but isn't that it's a substitute, and if somebody who's addicted to heroin, or somebody, if they just stop taking it right away, though, they could die. I think they go into seizures.
Yeah, but in most cases they don't taper you off of it. It's just it's their means of controlling it. You know what I'm saying? Like you're there, you're coming there, they know you, they know what you're getting, and I know I have a friend that's got an uncle that has been on it for years, going to the methadone clinic. I mean, just go for years. And so it's not, I don't think in many cases to taper you off. It's they claim it's safer in some cases, but you just get addicted to that, and that just becomes your other drug.
Yeah, I mean, it's still an opioid, right? And you have these opioid receptors in your body, right? And so when you take things like heroin is a form of morphine. If I remember correctly, it's diacetylmorphine.
Steve, you said you took Vicodin and you didn't find it addictive, right?
Yeah, I might have lesser opioid receptors than most people, right? Because I didn't find Vicodin to be very effective. Now, it did get rid of the neuropathy. I have, I think it's pronounced parathentesis. I have a problem with my spine, and so I get these tingling sensations, and it did alleviate that. But I never had any numbing. I never
you didn't get high off of it.
Never got high off Vicodin. Never once. No matter how much, I did 2 or 3 at a time. It didn't even have. I've tried hash once. I got me high as fuck. Okay. It was nothing like it.
A very important point is that the drugs affect different people in different ways, and definitely the hard drugs you mentioned are dangerous for a lot of people, but some people don't get addicted to them. Believe it or not. I mean, I can accept that it's a minority, but for those people, I guess those are the people that I'm sort of speaking for, because I don't want to see harmless people. What's the point of throwing somebody like that in prison that's not causing a problem?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
Well, yeah,
I don't think you can use the hard drugs as they're dangerous to that person as an argument, because like I said earlier, because alcohol is legal, and as long as alcohol is legal, that's one of the most dangerous and destructive things out there. I mean, there are people that growing up, I've had quite a few friends that were addicted to heroin, and quite a few. I was in a fraternity, so several that drank all the time, and I would much rather be in the company of the heroin addict than the drunks.
Okay,
so a million years.
So let me ask you this: if there was a substitute that came out for alcohol that made it so that you could drink, and I don't know, you could like instantly sober up by taking something else or whatever.
Synthahol.
Yeah, whatever. Something that still got you drunk, but would you then want to outlaw alcohol in lieu of this, because there was now something safer that people?
No, I want to decriminalize it all.
Even though that like people that switch from heroin to methadone inherently do better.
I would have to see the statistics on that. I don't believe they do at all.
I'm not convinced of that either. I think the methadone programs have failed, but
yeah, I don't think that's the case. whatsoever. I have a friend that was addicted to heroin really badly, and he got admitted into a rehab place. They put him on Suboxone strips, and he destroyed everything that in his life off those strips because that was a better high for him. So what was supposed to be the safer alternative in that scenario wound up being what undid him.
Because drugs do affect people differently. Like, for example, I brought it up before, like a pot. I don't like the sensation of pot. It doesn't do what other people describe. I don't get that out of it.
This is also important for me because a lot of people talk about pot and how it's, I first of all agree that it should be legal, but I've had horrible experiences with pot that it doesn't strike me well, and for me it's I consider it a very dangerous. For me, everybody's different. That's the thing. Like,
you bring that up. This is Dave. I hate to interrupt this conversation. But I have something kind of important to add. When recently I took a test, a medical test. It's called a DNA assay test for drugs. It's to find out what drugs work better on you versus other drugs for what conditions. And in my particular case, opioids and opiates in general don't actually help kill the pain in my case. Like, they still make me high, but they don't actually kill my pain. So after my first surgery, they gave me Percocet, and I would literally take five of those suckers and feel myself melt on the couch, and it still wasn't killing the pain. I didn't care about the pain at that point, but it wasn't. I felt it. So yeah,
I've been there too. I had Percocet from when I had my wisdom teeth out. Didn't do shit.
So yeah, there's it's genetically, they've found out the genes that make these drugs affect people differently. So that's definitely a thing. It's a scientific fact.
Certain strains of pot make me like I'm a potato. Like, I hate it. And funny story, when I was in prison, I remember I said that there was never a shortage of drugs in there, and on Christmas time there was a dry up of pot. Now that was the main thing you had access to there inside the prison, and 1 week it just dried up. It was gone. So somebody said they could get some K2 or spice in, and spice is a synthetic marijuana. It looks just like it, smells just like it, and supposedly you're supposed to have the same kind of high on it. So somebody wound up getting a bunch of that in, and I bought a bag of it, and I was in my bunk, rolled up a joint, smoked it. Everything was fine at first, but I'm watching the TV, and all of a sudden everything just got tunnel visioned, and the words that were coming out of the TV, it felt like I was in some kind of metallic cylinder and somebody was just banging on the outside of it. Everything was just amplified. And I thought, honestly, I was going to die that night. I swear to God that I thought I was done for. Like, they would be telling my mom the next morning that they found me in my bunk. So there were also people there that smoked it and loved it, and it was fine. It didn't affect them at all.
I had the exact same experience, believe it or not, with pot. I don't smoke it very often, so this was like, I don't know, 8 years ago. A friend of mine gave me 3 joints. I didn't realize how much even a joint was. I smoked all 3. The tunnel vision was crazy. And
well, that's why, Steve.
Yeah, and I called her up, and I'm like, "What the hell was that? Was it laced with that something?" And she's like, "No, it's just really pot, Steve." I'm like, "No, I'm dying here. I'm fucking dying." She's like, "You can't die of pot." And I told her, I said, "I swear to motherfucking God, I'll be the first person ever to die."
Oh my God, Steve.
I am dying. So I know that feeling. I think that's probably soured me on it forever, because it was a horrible.
But that's because you smoked 3 joints.
I didn't realize 3 joints was a lot. I had no idea at the time.
If I handed you 3 cigarettes right now, would you smoke all 3 back to back?
Yeah, I smoked for 25 years, 3 packs a day.
You're a man child. You're a man child, Steve.
I've been clean for 3 years now. So. smoking at least.
Oh, congrats.
Well, I don't think that's the pot's fault. I think you need to give the pot another chance in this because you fucked up that relationship.
Well, I've said now that it's legal in California, there are some dispensaries that are supposed to be opening up not too far from me, and I'll give it a shot one more time if I can find a decent strain. I just like to chill out, but not ever 3 again. That it was insane.
It all depends how you use it. It can be really, really nice to relax. Like one time I was at the beach and that was very relaxing. But for normal for everyday life, it doesn't really sit right with me because I'm always thinking about my obligations and the stuff I got to do in my life. Marijuana kind of makes me worry.
Yeah, it affects everybody definitely different. There's certain,
Sure.
like I said, there's certain strains now that I get that mess me up and I can't do. But still, at the end of the day, I think that everybody has the right to control what goes in their body, be that be whatever the ramifications happen.
Well,
they're taking that on themselves.
The things that they do that are dangerous, like let's say that crackheads or meth heads go out and hurt people, or they act poorly because of them. I still think we need to blame the person and not the drug. Because if they go out and do something horrible, that's something that should never happen. But I know a lot of people draw the connection between the people who use those hard drugs and crime, and certainly there's a connection there, but it's not necessarily there.
Yeah, I never did anything, and I was bad into cocaine, but I never did anything that I wouldn't do normally. I was one of those people that like to. I was involved in a bunch of things at college. I was the interfraternity council president. I was on the a lot of philanthropies there, and just to deal with all of that and the schoolwork, the coke just helped me, focus and get it done, and also keep a very clean dorm room. I will say, not a speck on the floor, but I agree with you. I think that the person needs to be blamed because if you're going to harm somebody, I think they would do it under other circumstances anyway. And that's why I say the thing about alcohol, like as long as that's legal, when I've seen how badly that's damaged people's lives, I don't think you can say that the other are any worse than that. Just my opinion, though.
Yeah, well, they do alter your mind differently, but like alcohol, I mean, I know people that drink and they just become instant belligerent assholes. I'm always a mellow drunk. I don't get violent. I don't get belligerent. I
like to sing and hug people.
You get all friendly and stuff. Yeah. But
that's a blessing. That's a blessing to have that, because I'm the same way,
It's weird because alcohol is supposed to be a social thing where you're drinking and you're having fun, and yet you always have that one asshole that drinks that just can't hold his liquor that becomes an instant dick. I was never that person. So I mean, it does affect people differently.
Yep. And somebody said in the live chat, it sounds like how college kids use Ritalin. Yep. I also a bunch of Adderall. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And don't think that's not I mean, that's Adderall and Ritalin are fucking drugs, people. They're like
speed. I mean, it's dextromethamphetamine. I mean, it's an amphetamine. So I used to get some of the best studying done under Adderall.
See, when I was in the nuke school, I don't know how long Adderall's been out, but the drug of choice was caffeine. I mean, people took no-dose. Was my God, how much no-dose people would take, because you had to stay awake for 12 hours a day.
That's just caffeine, though.
That's just caffeine, right? I couldn't imagine though if the Adderall was available at that time, even though obviously in the military you would get screwed for it. But I can see why people take that stuff to help them study, because you know what? There's advantages of staying awake to study when you have a test next day. Oh yeah, sure.
And the thing is, though, the thing about Adderall is that it made you want to do it. I mean, like you wanted to make sure that you got every point in and that you had, every I dotted and every T crossed. It in some ways, the society might be a lot more productive if they just rationed out Adderall to everybody.
If everybody gets a half a tablet of Adderall, I'll be okay. Okay.
Half Adderall, everyone.
Yeah, there you go. Adderall for everybody.
Plus, America would no longer have its obesity problem because you do not eat.
We'd be thin and be wired. We'd be like gung ho.
I think we found the solution here. See, guys, this all it took. Just the step of having this discussion, and now we are about to solve all of America's problems.
I think you should give that information to Mad Mike Hughes. He might be able to run for governor on that platform.
Steve, when we were as we were talking, I thought of an idea for one of your shows, because you listed a bunch of topics that you wanted to discuss, and you should have a show discussing whether or not addiction is a disease. Because that's a really good topic, and I was like, you know what, that's something that they should discuss.
That is a good topic. However, I have one run fast rule, and I haven't really violated it. When we talk about things like addiction, or we talk about things like that, I do want a medical person there to actually be an expert, because then you're talking
or a rehab specialist. I think
that's fine. Yeah, no, a rehab specialist as a medical person, I'm okay with that. But somebody who actually really does understand the nuances of addiction.
Somebody just said
that's a topic that
it's a good topic.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, brilliant.
It's triggering to a lot of people, understandably, because there's a lot of people that will speak their mind about anything, it's interesting. Like I have compassion for people that are suffering through addiction, whatever you want to call it, whether it's call it a disease or not. I still think that they deserve help and not condemnation.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's a good question, though, and that's a subject I think we should definitely have a discussion on, because, like, for me, I think that I will always be one of those people that is an addict. Like, I don't think I could be in a situation where somebody's doing cocaine and I'm there, and I can't confidently say that I wouldn't want to do that. Like, I think that now, will I do it? No, probably not. But the desire to want to do it, I think, will always be there. I don't think I'll ever get out of that feeling. So, call it a disease or not.
Yeah, I think it's a semantic issue. I do think the term disease implies certain things. I mean, I have a DSM-3 here, and disease usually is some kind of something that's not right with you. That's not due to a physical injury of some kind, right? If I have a broken leg, that's not a disease. But if I have cancer, that's considered a disease. I don't know if addiction really falls under disease under
it
that.
Could, though, because of the mental aspect.
It very well could, and if it is or isn't, to me, is a semantic argument. I agree with Kevin. It should be treated as if it is something that is treatable. That there's I can't say there's a cure for it, but like for me, and this is just me, I don't believe alcoholism is something that like forever, right? But that's what they put out. That's what the 12-step program is. Once you're an alcoholic, you're always alcoholic.
It is, though. It definitely is.
I don't know about that. I'm not convinced about that, to be honest with you. I'm really not.
All the everybody that I know that's been addicted to either alcohol or drugs and have gotten themselves clean say the same thing. Like, you can be around it, probably, maybe it's more so alcohol because it's more socially out there, but that desire to always want that never goes away. That's why you got addicted in the first place.
Well, I mean, like I'm around people that smoke, and I don't have a desire to have a cigarette.
But but I'm saying, like, there have to be sometimes where you say, God, now would be a perfect time to have a cigarette.
Okay, fair enough. That's true. But that doesn't mean I'm an addict. I mean, I'm still an addict to cigarettes. It just means that I recognize that, you know what, every so often, a nice cigarette sounds good, but I have no desire to. Maybe like the thought actually makes me kind of queasy.
Right. That's what I'm saying, though. That feeling and desire is something that I think is what the disease part is. Like, because there are people who look at cigarettes and just get disgusted. Like, they would never think of ever touching a cigarette. So different things affect people completely different. Sure. And I think you have to treat that and not lock it away. That's my overall point to everything. If you want to have a society where if you get caught with drugs, then it's mandatory that you go to, like rehab or something, I'd be okay with that too, because at least you're not just locking them away and not addressing the problem from the start. You know, if you're in prison, or at least for when I was there, they never even talk to you about your addiction or anything to do with the drug issue. You're just put there and you just literally wait until that day comes around, and then you're free to go right back out to whatever lifestyle you want to.
And see, I'd be good with that. I'd be, you know, if they made it so that after your second time or third time of getting in trouble, you mandatorily now have to go to rehab, and you know, after maybe the fifth or sixth time of you getting in trouble with it, well, now we can start talking about, you know, you got to spend 3 months in jail and then go to rehab because you're obviously just not getting it, or
I'd be okay. I'd be more okay with that kind of system,
right?
Than we have now.
Yeah, and if we could change it, I'd be good with that too. You know, but
see, the thing is, though, in that situation and in that scenario, it would cost the state to do that. You would then be incurring costs for treatment and to have, you know, psychologists, psychiatrists see these people and to talk to them and find out what they need specifically. It doesn't really cost that much to house them in a place, but to actually proactively go after what the cause for the addiction is, that would cost something. And I think that's why you don't see the big push to change things. It's a numbers game. It's not a human factor or what's best for society or what would be more effective in the long run in terms of cleaning people up. It's am I going to be in the red or am I going to be in the green?
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that, but I think the way Scuba Steve is talking about, he's talking about normativity, that this is what we should be doing. How we get there, that's a different argument, right? But I think that definitely it's a should, but I do agree with Kyle that money is the factor, without question. Money is the factor.
I think you could take money out of at least part of it for the state and make it, because I mean, let's say you get busted with cocaine, you know, and it's your first time and you go in front of the judge and he goes, okay, we're going to make you do inpatient counseling outpatient counseling, and you have to do some form of AA, or you have to show you're enrolled in some program. You do that for the first, second, maybe third time, depending on circumstances, before you start actually making them go to a rehab that would be.
But why do they need rehab if they just tried coke once? Why would they be arrested? I mean, if somebody can do coke or anything like that responsibly, honestly, I don't think I care. I really don't care. Why have them be arrested if they did coke?
Well, because I don't think you're finding those people, though. I mean, like, if I go buy coke and I'm responsibly using it and I come home and I use coke, nobody's ever going to know that I did it.
And to your point, the question that you were just asking about the going in front of a court and it not costing the state,
right?
By taking them out of where they are, because prison is such a big moneymaker. See, you're cutting off that source of funding,
right?
It's no longer there. So by just having them go up in front of a judge and take classes, that's definitely cutting them back even more. I mean, that's just slicing off that funnel of money that they're getting.
But he's saying that's the way it should be. There's a difference. Yeah. I mean, granted that it may not be that way, but that's the way it should be.
But no, he said that it wouldn't cost the state anything.
It would definitely cost the state quite a bit.
Oh,
everybody that goes in front of a judge, it's costing somebody. I mean, you have lawyer time, you have clerk time. Somebody is.
And like I said, there are cases where judges are getting kickbacks. There was a big expose on, I think it was Inside Edition, but the judges were getting kickbacks from the CEOs of these private prisons.
Wow.
That's just wrong.
For sentencing people to not only sentences, but for longer sentences, because the longer that they're in there, the more money that they get. And so they were donating to a judge's campaign in hopes or in exchange for those sentences. And that's a huge problem. Problem. Why are prisons privatized? Why?
They should.
I don't necessarily have a problem with privatized prisons, but
what do you mean you don't have a problem with privatized? What? How in the world can you say that you don't have a problem with?
Because there are some privatized prisons that are there. Of course, there's the problem is, again, we're talking about what is normative, right? A privatized prison that's run effectively and properly shouldn't be a problem, but unfortunately. Well, that's a different thing. The question is, are they? Well, no, but that's not.
No, that is the thing, because when you make prisons profitable for private companies, there is always an insidious.
I agree.
To do wrong, and by taking that outside of the public and putting it in the hands of the state, then there's more accountability. When you are making it like they're actually profiting on locking people up and warehousing them.
But if there wasn't that problem with it, then that would be, again, just having private prisons.
But there is, though.
The problem is the corruption that comes along with it. That's the problem.
Right. Why even put that out there as an option?
Well, I mean, I agree with that. Like I said, I don't think you can extricate the corruption from the private. I should say I don't have a problem with the concept of a private prison, but I agree with you. The corruption is out there, and unfortunately, you can't separate the two. And people will always, like you said, give money to judges for longer terms. That should be the one's criminal, not the person doing drugs.
Well, at the end of the day, you and I can have this difference of opinion over privatized prisons. The people who suffer in those things, though, and there are people who are suffering in those privatized prisons, are languishing away, and people are making money off of it for mostly nonviolent offenses. And I think that in itself is just evil.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I agree with you full-heartedly on that. And they need to fix it. But anyways, do you kind of like want to wrap it up? It seems like everybody kind of agrees. Maybe we have some leeway on agreement, but I think all in all, though, even Scuba Steve, you got to admit, the way the judicial system is now, the criminalization of it has problems.
Oh yeah. No, I completely agree with the way it is right now. It's completely screwed. But yeah,
make drugs great again.
Yeah,
make prisons great again. Yeah, Mappa.
I still think some of them should be like you were saying, meth, heroin. I think those should still be illegal. But everything else, I don't care what you do as long as you're not hurting anyone.
Oh, you heard him, guys. Go and do your cocaine and your marijuana freely tonight. I know I will.
I don't even have any alcohol. I got like a little bit of wine. I'm just drinking caffeine today.
So Steve, tomorrow you're coming back on a much more contentious, much more controversial, and it's going to be a much mucher.
It's
not going to be pretty tomorrow, I don't think. But be nice, because
Scientist Mel is we love
Mel.
She is a vicious debater.
Yeah, she's formidable.
She's going to bring it.
Don't underestimate her, dude. She's formidable. She will cut your legs out from under you and then feed them to you.
Oh, yeah, goody. Well, that sounds like fun.
I'll go ahead and say this ahead of the debate tomorrow. I support positions on both sides of the argument. I can see where both sides have a valid point, and so I'm looking to see who can sway me more between the two of you tomorrow.
Awesome. Sounds like a challenge.
Yep.
Kevin, do you have any last minute thoughts that you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my position is still the same, but as I'm speaking on the program, I'm curious, how many viewers do we have?
Right now we have 139, and literally the last 7 comments per se were love this show, great show, guys. Thank you for the show, guys. I freaking love this channel. I love you guys. I'm not even kidding. These literally are the comments. So they actually enjoyed this conversation. By
You're
the way,
welcome, America.
That's great. And the thing is, when speaking to publicly, there's a responsibility we have, and I'm wondering, I'm speaking kind of from a personal experience, but when I think of more the public at large, I do see the other, I do see the point, because about whether or not it would be actually good for the country at large. So I don't know, but for now, I'm still my position is still the same.
And tomorrow is going to be gun control. People are asking. By the way, you know how I know they actually like this discussion? There was only 1 thumbs down.
Ooh, awesome.
Ooh, that never happens.
So even the flat earthers like this, guys. They're all into drugs. Whenever it comes to drugs, thumbs up.
And guys, I'm pulling up right now. I'm going to give you the Steve. Go to our Twitter account and get the results from the Twitter poll, and I'm going to give them the results from our YouTube community poll. So 524 people voted, and to the question ahead of tonight's debate, should drug use be decriminalized? 78% said yes, 9% said no, and 13% are undecided on the issue. So I'm going to repost that once we conclude this stream. And if you voted, please go back and vote again, and we'll be able to see if you were swayed, if you went more in one direction. But that's an overwhelming number. 78% say yes.
Where'd you pull that off of?
That's off of our YouTube community
Okay,
page.
because guess what? Off the Twitter feed, the question was ahead of tonight's debate: should drug use be decriminalized? And there was 78% that said yes, 11% that said no, and 11% undecided. So that's pretty amazing that it's pretty much exactly the same Facebook stuff.
That's
so
nearly 80% of
80% almost. That's significant because I got to tell you, on most of these polls, and granted, they are very unscientific to say the least, and most people get things wrong on these polls. But when you have something like this,
before you go on, Steve, somebody else said that on Twitter that this is not a scientific poll, and that pissed me off because
it's not.
But when did I ever say that it was a scientific poll? It's a poll. Twitter doesn't give you the option to click. Is this poll scientific?
Yeah, no, I know. We have to throw that out there just as a disclaimer. But yeah, no, when you have something like this, assholes. where I think there's good discussions to be had on both sides. I think there's viable arguments to be had on both sides, right? It's not like, hey, flat earthers is around where Earth. You know, if you get 6% that says flat Earth, you got to remember most of our polls are just idiots. But on something like this, where you have 80% that says decriminalization, I think there's something to be said for that. And I think that is the way the tide's going, for the reasons that were given in this particular show tonight. Why I personally think it is better to decriminalize, and I think people made valid arguments across.
Well, here's my question to you, Steve. Though, why is it not becoming decriminalized then? If this poll is somewhat on the pulse of America, why are our lawmakers not making it happen? There's a reason why it's
voting
not
in idiots.
Well, because those guys are getting kickbacks from things like privatized prisons and the like. They're getting money to not even talk about these things. They don't want it. They don't want it decriminalized.
Well, but that's why you get people in power that can make a difference, and unfortunately, that's easier said than done.
Show me one.
Well, I mean, it starts with the grassroots. I mean, it starts with the counties. It starts. The sheriff's department is actually voted. The sheriff is actually voted into office.
Different debate,
right?
So different conversation.
But completely different debate. And you know what? That's a really good argument we had too.
But show me one is my question. Show me one that will do what it takes.
Well, again, we're talking about normativity, what should be rather than what is. And, you know, you have to start somewhere. We have to start with the argument, what needs to happen? And then the next step is, how do we make that happen? Right? You can't just say, hey, you know what, it can never change. Because then nothing ever does get to change. I do think that things can change, but it's a long haul. It's a long road ahead of us to completely overhaul the judicial system.
My last point on the matter, and then we'll close out. But think about this. If we were to attain that change, where would all of those people go and get jobs? And what would that do to the state's budget by taking all of that revenue away? It would be a mess. I mean, we've got ourselves into a mess that may be impossible to get out of. No.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying though. We've made a monster that I don't know how you fix it.
You charge people for drugs like they did marijuana. You make profit out of it. Matter of fact, there's much more money to be made by drugs than there in the prison system.
That might be true.
You know,
maybe I don't know. I'm just saying I think we made a horrible monster. But anyway, thank you both to Kevin and Scuba Steve for coming on. This was a great talk. I really enjoyed it.
Loved it.
And Stephen will be back with us tomorrow to take on a much more simple, much more agreeable to everyone.
Oh no, it's going to be a dumpster fire tomorrow, people.
Second Amendment. So bring your cocaine, bring your weed, and then bring your revolver, and we'll have us a party tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Also at 8 p.m. we will have Adam Kokish, who is running for president in 2020 on the Libertarian
It's a double
ticket. We
header.
will talk. We will talk to him about liberty, First Amendments, and First Amendment auditors. So,
By the way, we do have official contact. We will have a First Amendment auditor coming on.
yes,
So
yes, the 17th.
that's going to be one of my favorite shows because
He and Aaron Ra will be on the same show together. Aaron Ra wants to talk to.
I love that.
Aaron Ra wants to talk to a First Amendment auditor. So, and remember, Joe last night said he wanted to have a debate with Aaron Ra, and I hope that I've talked him out of it because
I hope you did too. To be
that's no. I don't want to sit back and watch that. That's just not something that will be pretty to see, and I have
that's a toxic dumpster fire. That I wouldn't even bother Aaron with that. I mean, the guy's got problems.
No, we're not saying that. Disclaimer: we're not saying that Joe has problems.
He has problems. I don't need. I didn't say mental. I didn't say mental or physical. I mean,
he's just out there.
He has issues.
Just out
Sorry, he has issues. Come on. But I mean, I'd rather see put Aaron's expertise on being a hammer on things to more interesting endeavors, I guess you can say, right? Like the First Amendment auditor, I think that's going to be a brilliant conversation, actually.
Yeah, it'll be a really good conversation.
Yeah.
But anyway, so a lot going on. We'll see you tomorrow at 8, and Saturday we've got a private hangout for people who are our Patreons. We've got a special topic that we're going to be talking about, really interesting, that I've put together, and I think it's going to lead to a fantastic time. So if you're a Patreon, plan on joining us at 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, and we will see you guys tomorrow. At this time, I will now say our standard, very catchy outro tagline, and that is, Steve, what's our tagline again?
Flat is not forever.
Sure, let's go with that. Good night.
Non sequitur. Your facts are uncoordinated.